Today I want to tell you about a French composer, music critic, and conductor by the name of Hector Berlioz. He was born in 1803 in a little town in the south of France to an upper middle class family. His father was a physician, a scientist. His mother was deeply Catholic, and there was some division with that. Now, Hector was a smart boy. He was a very curious boy. He was interested, and he had a great imagination. He loved playing around in the fields and in nature, and his dad took an interest in his education. His dad made sure that he understood classical literature and also music theory. However, he never had formal piano lessons, and actually as a composer it's very rare, but he never did learn how to play the piano. However, he did go on to teach himself how to play the flute, how to play the guitar, how to play the flageolet, which is like a tiny wind instrument. And as a teenager, he just started dabbling in composition because he loved music and he was interested in it. However, his family was not like a big supporter of this per se. His family really was pushing him to go into the medical field. So once he graduated and went to college, he did go to study to be a doctor. Now it was okay. He was smart enough. But once the corpses came out and they had to start really learning, he was not okay with it. That was not his thing. And in the meantime, he kept really dabbling more and more into music, and he really got into it. And he actually started taking classes at the conservatory, and eventually he dropped out of medical school. His mom was not okay with this at all. His dad probably wasn't, well, his dad was not okay with it either. His dad's like, I will support you and pay for music school for a little bit, hoping his son would come to senses and be like, no, music is not really sustainable. I'm going to go back to be, study physician. But he never did. He stayed with music from then on. So here he is in conservatory. His mom said, "You're dead to me," which, my goodness. And he's studying music. He's studying composition, to be very clear. He also started studying poetry. He really got into Shakespeare, but he also was studying music, and he loved like Beethoven and how emotional all that was. Well, in 1827, an English company came to France and they performed Hamlet. And there was an Irish actress who played the role of Ophelia. And he loved this everything about her. And he became deeply obsessed with the actress that played Ophelia. He would write her letters and she ignored him. And he tried again and she ignored him. He tried so desperately and he absolutely became obsessed. So here we have Harriet. That's the name of the actress. Harriet just ignoring him writing letters. And what happened here? This was a big deal for his music. He wrote a symphony fantastique. And it was based on this obsession. And the symphony tells a story about this artist who is obsessed with this woman and whose love is not returned, and he poisons himself. Not real, okay, this is in the music piece, with opium. And then he has these crazy dreams that you can hear in the music of like his own execution, and then there's a demonic dance, and the whole thing is based on his feelings and his obsession with Harriet. Well, this symphony set him on the map. It was over the top. It was great. It is deeply emotional and sometimes a little disturbing, and it is wonderful and very entertaining to listen to. Eventually, he does get to meet Harriet, and they fall in love, and they have a great love story for a very short time, maybe like a year or so. But then there's like a lot of misunderstanding. He's French. He speaks French. She's Irish. So there's a language barrier, there's a cultural barrier. They're also struggling with money, and it's just, it leads to a lot of misunderstanding. It leads to a lot of heartbreak. They had one son named Louis, but that didn't really bring her much joy. He was out a lot. He was traveling, conducting and doing things. She was lonely. She had a hard time adjusting to her life in Paris, and she just struggled. Their personalities clashed. It didn't really work. Like the idea he had of her was not really like who she was in real life. Well, because she was so sad, she didn't get the right kind of help, and she ended up turning to alcohol, which led to a bunch of, ailments and sicknesses that can come with that. She became partially paralyzed, and eventually she passed away. As music was so out there, and a lot of people didn't understand it at the time, I think there's a lot bigger of appreciation for what he did nowadays than when he was alive. So he was struggling for recognition. Also, we're in Paris, and all the great musicians are there. So there's a lot of competition, and audiences were preferring like the lighter, happier stuff over his like demonic dances, right? So even though it did put him on the map, it wasn't like now he was like this great thing. So in order to survive and to still make money, he worked as a music critic for newspapers and for journals at the time. And his reviews were very witty, but also very sharp. And sometimes they were somewhat controversial, but you know what? That makes people want to read your stuff. And it did earn him respect in that way. And a lot of intelligent music people today still are enjoying reading what he wrote back then. March 8th, 1869, he passed away in Paris. He was buried next to Harriet, his first wife. He did have a second wife. He remarried a French woman this time, Marie, and that marriage was a little happier. I would like to think he was very respected by the music world, but I don't think he was fully understood. It wasn't until years later that the music scholars really had a better understanding of what all he was doing and how far ahead of his time really his music was, the expression that he was putting into it, his bold use of orchestration, he was so good at this emotional storytelling in such a dramatic form. And I would encourage you to go listen to Hector Berlioz.